Welcome team to another episode of Rod and Rifle Reviews. Today we have a rifle scope on review. The maker is Athlon and the model is the Argos 2x12-42 illuminated reticle scope. To start, let's do the background information. Who is the scope right for? So 2x12 by 42, you're looking at a really good all-rounder standard hunting scope, okay? Not too much magnification, and you can go right down to ×2, which is a great bonus for people who like to do the close-in stuff. The reticle is holdover style with several graduations on it, and it is also illuminated. We'll go over through the test. I'll explain to you about what the subtensions are and how they'll probably relate to a few of your more common calibers. Athlon is an American company, and where they've made their name and had great gains over the last few years since they launched is in the economy to mid-level priced bracket. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to make scopes as high a quality as they possibly can and match that with price point. So making sure that you're getting as good as you can for the money that you're providing. So what are we going to test on the scope? Obviously, all around use. Okay, we'll test the lenses and make sure that everything on the scope works as it should. It's got a holdover reticle. Let's test the subtensions. Okay, the dials, when we're zeroing and doing our range work, let's make sure that the dials do exactly what they're supposed to do as well. They need to be accurate, even on a mid to lower priced range scope. They need to be very, very, very precise. Thirdly, remember we said 2x12 by 42 is the perfect all-round hunting scope and magnification. So let's take it out, let's give it a thrashing and see if it holds up.
Okay, for the testing, basically we have a chart made out with a series of inches laid out on the chart, and we move the scope turrets through their various planes of movement, always returning to zero. Remember, the return to zero is very important. Manufacturers on economy and medium price scopes will often save money on the turret, so you have to check them to make sure they're precise. As you can see here, the Athlon Argos absolutely knocked it out of the park. It returned to zero fantastically. The subtensions were spot on.
Okay, so the next part of the review is testing the subtensions of the holdover reticle. So obviously the scope uses a holdover system of graduated bars at different subtensions. So to test the holdovers, what we did was made a board up which was at the correct subtensions for the scope, and then we placed it down the range and see if the graduations lined up with it. Now that's really important, especially if you're going from turrets to holdover. It's really important that they do marry up. The scope that we tested here, it married up almost exactly, and that was at 100 meters. So if you listen to any of my other reviews, you'll hear I'm a big fan of holdover for normal hunting distances, because out to 300 or 400 meters where you don't really have to dial, the fastest way to get on target is to use holdover graduations. So we know that the reticle and the subtensions are correct. So now we've got to test it on the range. So what we'll go on to now is we're going to use the holdovers at 200 and then 300, just standard hunting ranges. We'll do one practice shot at each of those ranges to see where our fall of shot is, because obviously being an American scope, they've used yards. With the holdovers, the subtensions or the drops that they use are going to be a conglomerate of most of the popular hunting cartridges. So it's really going to marry up exactly. So you're always going to have a slight difference. This is a 100, 200, 300 meter range, and the holdovers are based on yards. So there is going to be a slight difference there, which we'll see if we account for. So we'll go into now, we'll fire our 2 and 300 using the first and the second drop holdover bar, and we'll see how we get on.
Okay, so here we are, one shot at 200 meters. And then we adjust onto 300, moving the next hash mark down. back to 200 meters. And the same again at 300, and then we'll go check our target, see what the results were. So after working out what the holdovers related to our trajectory at the 200, we fired 2 confirming shots at the 200 and then 2 at the 300. So we'll just check our 200 targets now, and I must say it's gone pretty well. That's the first shot at 200 meters using the holdover, and the aim was just on top of the paper. And that is the second shot at the 200 meters there with the same aim point. Okay, there's the first shot at the 300 there using the holdover. And this one here, not so good as the other one, but still a dead deer. And that is using the next hash mark down.
So as you can see from the footage we just filmed down the range, the holdover went magnificently. We still had to hold over a little bit above where the holdover graduations were, but if you supplant that back to yards like it's supposed to be designed in, so you're taking off basically 10%, then it would be a lot closer. But to get those shots on those targets at that ranges that quickly, that's exactly why I love holdover, and the scope does that very well.
We headed out into the beautiful Mackenzie country for 4 days with the Argos mounted on my trusty T3 6.5 by 55. The scope handled the mountain conditions admirably, the rain, the sleet and the snow, and it pulled off shots from between 60 meters and 270 meters. The holdovers worked well as expected, and no faults were seen with the scope.
That concludes the testing phase for the Argos 2x12-42 HMR scope. So in basic, what you can see there, you've got a mid-level price scope. The glass is good. It's not premium glass, but you're never, if you pay that amount of money, you're never going to get premium glass, but it is good glass. The turrets work extremely well. The graduations are all proven. The holdovers we've just proven as well, and it did admirably on the hunting test as well. So some of the tests you'll see, some of you might ask, well, why do you test the turrets on a standard hunting scope like this, or basically not a dial-level scope? And the reason for that is scope manufacturers, when they're making a scope on price point, like the Argos is made on a price point, they use techniques to save money, and there's certain areas where they save money. One is on the glass, and 2 is on the turrets. Okay, so if you're going to buy a price point scope, economy to mid-range, then sometimes the turrets are the things that they're going to save money on, and they're not going to be up to scratch. So another great scope from Athlon, perfect for your general average New Zealand hunter. Probably max range for their hunting is 300 to 400 meters, something like that, so that the holdovers work well. It's robust, the turrets are good, and the glass is good.